Hello, everyone. My name is Susan. Today, I did not come here to spread hate, and I did not come here to insult any religion. I came here to ask one question. Which religion is truly the best? Is it Hinduism, Islam, or Christianity? Or is humanity itself the answer? Greatest religion of all. Tonight, we begin a journey, not a journey of war or politics, but a journey of truth, morality, sacrifice, and the human soul. Many years ago, in a crowded city, people from different religions lived together. Hindus prayed in temples, Muslims prayed in mosques, and Christians prayed in churches. Every group believed their path was the correct one, and every family taught their children that their religion was the best. Slowly, people stopped listening to one another. Arguments became anger, and anger became division. One day, a teacher gathered students from all religions into a single room and asked them a strange question. If saving 5 innocent people required sacrificing 1 life, what would you do? The room became silent. Students stood up and said, "I would sacrifice 1 person to save 5. Another student replied, "No innocent person deserves to die." Soon the room exploded with arguments. Some believed morality is based on consequences, while others believed some actions are always wrong, no matter the outcome. The teacher smiled and said, "Religion is not only about prayer. Religion is also about difficult choices." The students looked confused, and the teacher continued, "A good human being is not tested when life is easy. Being is tested when the choice becomes painful." Susan sat quietly in the back of the room, listening carefully. That night, she walked through the city streets and saw a hungry child begging for food. Nobody asked the child what religion he belonged to. A Muslim shopkeeper gave him bread, a Hindu doctor treated his wounds for free, and a Christian woman gave him clean clothes. Suddenly, Susan realized something powerful. Compassion has no religion, kindness speaks every language, and human pain looks the same in every heart, country, every culture, and every faith. The next morning, Susan visited an old wise man who lived near the mountains. She asked him, "Sir, which religion is truly the best?" The old man smiled softly, and instead of answering, he handed Susan 3 glasses of water. 1 glass came from a temple, 1 from a mosque, and 1 from a church. "Drink them," he said. Susan drank all 3 glasses and whispered, "They taste the same." The old man nodded and said, "Because truth is like water. Human beings give it different names, but it still gives life to everyone." Days later, disaster struck the city. A terrible fire spread through the marketplace. People screamed, children cried, and smoke covered the sky. In that terrifying moment, religion disappeared. A Hindu man carried an injured Muslim child to safety. A Christian firefighter rescued an elderly Hindu woman, and Muslim volunteers gave water and food to everyone without asking questions. Nobody cared about names or labels. All they cared about was saving human lives. Susan watched everything with tears in her eyes. That night, she remembered the teacher's question, "What is the right thing to do?" She finally understood. Sometimes morality is not simple, and sometimes life forces painful choices. But one truth always remains: humanity matters. Without humanity, religion becomes empty words, and without compassion, prayer loses meaning. The teacher once said, "A person who hurts innocent people in the name of religion understands neither God nor humanity." Those words echoed inside Susan's heart forever. Years passed, and Susan became a speaker known around the world. People from different religions came to hear her words. One day, during a large gathering, a man stood up angrily and shouted, "My religion is superior to all others." The crowd became tense. Susan calmly walked toward the man and asked, "If your religion teaches love, why is there hatred in your voice?" Silent. Then Susan spoke to the crowd and said, "The greatest religion is the religion that teaches you to protect innocent people, respect others, and stand against cruelty." The entire hall became quiet. Susan continued speaking. "Every religion has wise teachings. Every faith teaches kindness, honesty, and discipline, but human beings often use religion for pride, power, and division. A temple, a mosque, and a church are only buildings. The real place of worship is the human heart." People listened with tears in their eyes. Some remembered old hatred, some remembered broken friendships, and some remembered family members lost because of violence and division. An old man in the audience slowly stood up and said, "When I was young, I hated people from other religions, but during a flood, a man from another faith saved my life. Today I learned something important. Goodness is greater than labels." The audience applauded loudly, and Susan smiled gently. She then shared one final story. A starving traveler once arrived in a village and asked many people for help. Some ignored him, and some insulted him. Finally, a poor family welcomed him inside their small house and shared their last piece of bread with him, even though they had almost nothing. Susan paused for a moment and said, "That family never asked the traveler about religion first. They saw hunger before identity, pain before politics, and humanity before division." The room fell completely silent. Susan took a deep breath and spoke her final words. "So which religion is the best? The answer is simple. The best religion is the one that teaches you to become a better human being. The best religion is the one that fills your heart with compassion instead of hatred. The best religion is the one that protects innocent lives instead of destroying them. Because at the end of life, God will not ask how loudly you hated others. God will ask how deeply you loved humanity." Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe for more emotional and philosophical stories. Leonardo da Vinci. The moment we hear this name, images of peaceful and beautiful paintings like the Mona Lisa or the Last Supper appear in our minds. Most people think he was only a painter who spent his life playing with colors and brushes. People believe his life revolved around art and fame. Inji, in the 15th century, was far darker and more terrifying than anyone could imagine. For him, art was not just beauty or a hobby. It was a weapon to cut open the cruel and naked truth of nature itself. At a time when the entire world blindly believed in religion, churches, and miracles, this man became so obsessed with truth that he wandered into graveyards at midnight and pulled out rotting corpses. He dissected dead bodies with his own hands just to see the real machinery of human veins, beating hearts, and bones. Lonely man whose mind was running centuries ahead of his time. He designed flying machines, drew blueprints of terrifying weapons, and looked at the world with mysterious eyes where humans, nature, and machines were all connected together. The thousands of pages in his notebooks, written in strange mirror writing, were proof of the storms and loneliness inside his mind. In this video, we will descend into the dark, isolated, and obsessive journey of Leonardo da Vinci. Prepare yourself, because today you will face the madness hidden behind the calm image of a painter. A madness that will completely destroy every illusion you have about art and science. Leonardo da Vinci was born on April 15, 1452, near a small hill town called Vinci in the Tuscany region of Italy. His father, Piero, was a successful legal official and landowner, while his mother, Caterina, was a simple peasant woman. Leonardo's parents were never married. In Italian society at that time, children born outside marriage faced many social and legal restrictions. This deeply shaped Leonardo's life. If he had been a legitimate child, society would have forced him into his list. Father's profession. He would have received a traditional education in Latin and Greek and been sent to university. But because of his status, Leonardo never received that formal education. Historian Walter Isaacson explains in his books that this lack of education became Leonardo's greatest blessing. Since he was never trapped by ancient books or old scholars, he refused to blindly believe anything. Instead of books, he made nature his greatest teacher. From childhood, he carefully observed the hills, rivers, stones, and animals around Vinci. He believed real knowledge was not hidden inside dusty pages, but in directly observing the world with your own eyes. When Leonardo was around 14 years old, his father took him to Florence around 1466. Florence was one of the biggest centers of art and trade in Italy. There, his father sent him to work in the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the most famous artists of the time. Verrocchio's workshop was not just a painting studio. It was like a modern factory where many skills were taught together. Leonardo learned chemistry, metalworking, woodworking, and geometry alongside painting. He learned how colors were created by grinding minerals and stones into powders. It was here that Leonardo understood something revolutionary. Art and science were not separate things. To draw something correctly, you first had to understand how it truly worked from the inside. During his time there, he mastered oil painting, a technique far more advanced than the egg-based paints used by most artists. Oil paints dried slowly, giving artists time to blend colors naturally and make endless corrections. Leonardo studied this technique so deeply that he eventually surpassed even his teacher. Leonardo's entire philosophy was built around a simple but powerful idea called saper vedere, which means knowing how to see. He believed the human eye was the most important tool for understanding the universe. He never accepted information without testing it himself. If an old book claimed that water flowed in a certain way, Leonardo would not trust it blindly. He would stand beside rivers for hours, dropping pieces of wood into the current and carefully observing how whirlpools formed and how water curved around obstacles. He connected the movement of water with the twisting of human hair, realizing that nature repeated the same patterns everywhere. After years in Florence, Leonardo made a major decision in 1482. At the age of 30, he left Florence and moved to Milan. He no longer wanted to remain just a painter. He wanted to transform his engineering and scientific ideas into reality. Milan was ruled by Ludovico Sforza, and Leonardo wrote him one of the most famous letters in history. In that letter, Leonardo barely mentioned painting. Instead, he introduced himself as a military engineer. He promised he could build portable cannons, redirect rivers, and create armored vehicles capable of surviving enemy attacks. His designs for armored wagons looked shockingly similar to modern tanks. Ludovico hired Leonardo, and for the next 17 years, Leonardo lived in Milan. During this period, he began deeply studying human anatomy. At the time, dissecting human bodies was considered controversial and even sinful by many religious authorities. But Leonardo believed that if an artist wanted to paint the human body truthfully, he had to understand what existed beneath the skin. He began dissecting corpses in hospitals. He treated the human body like a complex machine. Historian Martin Kemp explains that Leonardo viewed bones as levers and muscles as ropes pulling those. He cut open skulls to draw detailed images of the brain and nervous system. He studied how the eyes connected to the brain through nerves. His studies of the human heart were astonishingly accurate. His drawings of heart valves opening and closing are still considered scientifically correct today. Using glass tubes, he experimented with blood flow. This was no longer the work of a simple painter. It was the work of a true scientist trying to uncover the hidden mechanics of nature itself. Alongside anatomy, Leonardo developed two revolutionary painting techniques. The first was called chiaroscuro, the dramatic use of light and shadow. Leonardo realized that when light hits a round object, brightness slowly fades into darkness instead of ending with a hard line. Carefully recreating these shadows mathematically, he made flat paintings appear three-dimensional and lifelike. He used geometry to calculate how light would strike surfaces and how shadows would stretch across objects. His second technique became even more legendary: sfumato. Sfumato means blending colors so smoothly that all sharp edges disappear. Most artists of that era outlined objects with clear, dark lines, but Leonardo observed that in real life, no. Object has hard outlines. Colors softly melt into one another. So he blended tones delicately, creating paintings that looked soft, alive, and natural. During his years in Milan, Ludovico Sforza commissioned Leonardo to paint a mural inside the dining hall of the Santa Maria della Grazia church. This masterpiece became known as the Last Supper. Leonardo spent years preparing it. He walked through the streets of Milan, studying ordinary people's faces, observing how muscles moved during emotions like fear, anger, and shock. He sketched these expressions in notebooks and later used them in the painting. Leonardo also used precise mathematical perspective. Every line in the room pointed directly toward Christ's head, forcing the viewer's attention toward Jesus. Leonardo experimented with a new painting method on a dry wall instead of traditional wet plaster. Unfortunately, the chemical mixture failed, and the painting began deteriorating within decades. Yet, the emotional realism of The Last Supper changed the entire direction of Western art forever. Leonardo's notebooks remain one of the greatest treasures in history. He filled thousands of pages with sketches, inventions, scientific observations, and random notes. The strangest part was that he wrote backwards, from right to left, in mirror writing. His words could only be easily read through a mirror. Believe this was not done to hide secrets. Leonardo was left-handed, and since ink dried slowly, writing backwards prevented his hand from smearing fresh ink. His notebooks had no order on the same page. He might draw the human heart, design a water machine, and write a grocery list. His mind constantly moved between different worlds. He believed everything in nature was connected. Leonardo became obsessed with flight. He studied birds and bats for hours, trying to understand how wings pushed air downward to lift bodies upward. He designed machines for human flight, including spiral-shaped devices similar to modern helicopters. Most of his inventions were impossible to build during his lifetime because there were no engines powerful enough. Yet his designs proved that his imagination was centuries ahead of his age. In 1499, French forces invaded Milan, forcing Leonardo to flee. After traveling through Mantua and Venice, he eventually returned to Florence around 1500. By then, Florence had changed. A new generation of artists had emerged. But Leonardo was no longer seen as just a painter. He was respected as a master of science, mathematics, and engineering. In 1502, Leonardo began working for the dangerous military leader Cesare Borgia as his chief engineer. During this time, Leonardo revolutionized mapmaking. Traditional maps were drawn from ground level, showing buildings from the front. But Leonardo created an overhead map of the city of Imola, using geometry and measurements, almost like a modern satellite image. It was incredibly accurate and helped Borgia's armies navigate cities with precision. Around 1503, Leonardo started painting what would become the most famous portrait in human history, the Mona Lisa. To Leonardo, this painting was not just a commission. It was the ultimate summary of his life's knowledge. He kept the painting with him until his death, constantly refining it. The mystery of Mona Lisa's smile came directly from Leonardo's anatomical studies. He dissected human faces to understand every muscle involved in smiling. He mapped the nerves connecting the lips to the brain. He combined this scientific knowledge with his understanding of light and human vision. Leonardo discovered that the edges of human sight detect shadows better than sharp lines. So he painted subtle shadows around Mona Lisa's lips without drawing clear outlines. When viewers look at her eyes, their peripheral vision catches those shadows, making the smile appear alive. But when they stare directly at her lips, the smile fades. It was not magic. It was pure science hidden inside art. Leonardo layered dozens of transparent paint glazes onto the Mona Lisa, each layer taking months to dry. This technique created the illusion that light was glowing from beneath her skin. The background landscape also reflected Leonardo's philosophy. He believed the human body and the earth followed the same laws. Mountains were like bones, rivers were like veins, and the planet itself was a living organism. Around 1504, Leonardo met a man over 100 years old in a Florentine hospital. The man claimed he suffered from no illness, only weakness. Hours later, he died peacefully. Leonardo became obsessed with understanding how a healthy body could simply stop living. He dissected the man's body and discovered that old age itself changes the blood vessels and organs. His observations were centuries ahead of medical science. Hello, guys. Today I have brought you one of the craziest and darkest histories ever told on FB. If you truly listen to this story, it will completely blow your mind. I hope you stay till the end, because what you are about to hear is not just the story of a painter. It is the story of a man whose mind was centuries ahead of humanity itself.